You are now listening to the Ninth Hour Podcast. They're out saber rattling today. We usually take this whole week to eat and consume the news, and on the weekend we digest it and we distill it to those spiritualists trying to find their way in this maze of misinformation out here today. And so we see again the politicians are beating their chests like silverback gorillas, talking about invading, putting troops. They're talking about now putting more troops in the Middle East. They've actually called up or reactivate, whatever the military term is, called more Marines, mobilize more troops to go out there. They added to the 2,500. I think it's a total, either add 4,500 or a total of nearly 5,000 extra troops. And I think they already had 50,000 out there, but that's not enough if you're going to wage war with Iran, who has the backing of Russia, who has the backing of China. Those of us who know that China is now lending their satellite information to the Iranians to aid them in guiding their bombs. That's why, a certain Polak is possibly missing right now. That's not because of just lobbing out missiles and Fatah drones and all of that. That's precision right there. So this is not an undertaking to be overlooked. And they are now talking about instituting the draft, but not only instituting the draft, Western powers do nothing for naught. Meaning that, like when Trump was actually mobilizing and bringing the USS Gerald Ford and all of these troops out there, all these ships and whatnot out there, they were actively engaged in peaceful negotiations. And people were saying, maybe this is just his way of intimidating. He had it in his mind, psychoanalyzing this person or these people. They had it in their mind already that they was getting ready to pulverize that place. And it was only a ruse. The talks were a ruse. And I'm going to tell you that the Iranians seem like more noble people than America. And that's shocking. See, these are people that they like to say is a theocracy. And so they have morality up front. You could disagree with their religion, but lying is not a principle of their religion. And so when they was negotiating, they were negotiating in good faith. They were talking about capitulating and bringing down. I think they said they was going to get rid of all the uranium all the way down to medical grade. They was right there saying you can get rid of all the, potential of going up to military grade only for medical reasons. They had already broken it down. But Benjamin Milikoski was there to take Trump and tell him what he was going to do. They wasn't looking for Iranian capitulation. They was looking for all-out war. There's a greater plan.
And Netanyahu, or his body double, whichever one it may have been, he did a press conference and he said, no, we do need boots on the ground.
Yeah.
He literally said that.
Yeah.
That there needs to be not just an air campaign, not a sea campaign, not drones, but boots on the ground in Iran.
There was a thing that happened. I forget the incident, but they had heard about a jet going down, and the Israelis was like, I hope that's not us. And they found out it was an American jet. I was like, oh, okay, good. They don't care about American lives. They're talking about putting boots on the ground. They're not talking about putting their boots on the ground. They're saying what Ted Cruz was saying, what other politicians are talking about. Ted Cruz went away and said, I am actively looking, I'm promoting Israel, I'm for Israel. Before I die, I'm always be Israel. And Lindsey Graham, he went out and was talking about he want boots on the ground. Now he's going back to North Carolina and he's going to tell you to put your people on the line, a.k.a. draft for a foreign country. That's treasonous talk right there. Nothing. You have no interest in it whatsoever, but you are expected to hand over your child to Molech. I believe this is 2026, handing over your child to be sacrificed for Molech. You got to ask yourself, are you ready to hand over your child? You know what? That's too simplistic. If you're under 65 years of age, are you ready to hand over your life patriotically, honorably, and I say that with a grin, to Molech, offering your life so that they may go around and continue to pillage in the earth and to destroy this place. Well, they're talking about it. As I said before, they were mobilizing in the Middle East, knowing that they were full well that they was getting ready to attack Iran, but they went under the guise of, we're just here just in case they don't. Just like right now. In December of 2025, they acted or passed a law that all men must be automatically registered when you turn 18. It used to be you used to go and register up for the selective service. Some men didn't. If you had to go to college or you wanted to go to college, it was a mandate before you got any kind of student loans. And they had other kind of little schemes out there to get you to register. But registration, whether registered or not, they got their way of doing it. But now it is automatic on your 18th birthday. And I would surmise before your 18th birthday, they got them already lined up, you know, that who's going to be registered for the draft. Now, the draft has not started. I'm not saying that. I'm not alarming you. But I am saying that things are so contentious right now, a draft can be enacted at any moment. Any moment. There can be a false flag, and there may be a false flag. Those who do not know what a false flag is, many wars from World War I, II, all the way up to the Iraqi War or the Persian Gulf War, all started with false flags. That's this great catastrophic event like planes hitting the Twin Towers, and it just makes it mandatory. We must go to war. And if you don't want to go to war, you're not patriotic. And they look down upon you, and it gives them all the pause, give them all the power, I should say, to mobilize and move forward in war.
And they said that the FBI warned that Iran might try to strike Los Angeles, which with their drones, which Iran came out flatly said, no, we have no plans of that. And they said we're not at war with United States citizens. We're at war with the United States government.
See, that would happen if you was at war with Israel. They would have bombed everything. Yeah. They would be bombing houses in North Carolina. What does that have to do with your angst with White House, you know? That's what they do. As I said, we're going to psychologically examine the folk in this war. Who is more moral than the other? And see, we spiritualists know that it is written that we shall judge a tree by its fruit, not the words. And see, these people are political geniuses. They love to purchase the media, purchase the paper, purchase all the platforms, and then they put out their narrative and talk as opposed to action. So we only can judge by the actions. And we're going to do a deep dive into history, how they implemented drafts in the past and how they're doing draft right now throughout the world. And that is a telling sign of how they will implement a draft if and when it came here to America and Western society, if the world began to get into a kinetic conflict. And so we're going to talk about that. But let's talk about our sponsor again. Our sponsor, you want to take the floor?
Yeah, we're sponsored by Infinite Waters. You can find them on Amazon. We're going to be talking about more about them a little bit later. Infinite Waters. We're going to be talking about more about them a little bit later in this broadcast. As we continue on, we're going to be talking about more about them a little bit later.
But we can't stress how much Infinite Waters is a part of our regimen. I mean, true natural hydration. People talked about Gatorade, Powerade, all the sugar and all the chemicals in it. We was talking about it's possibly the water that they're using. I don't even know if it's purified water. It could be regular tap water with that atrazine in it. You know, you never know. But this is not the water. You add it to the water. And it's purified water, you know. So these are the things that we can do to help, you know, address some of the health deficits that are, you know, persistent among the people. But let's go. Go ahead.
If you click on that video, engineer, AP Hakam, they're talking about the draft, and this law has been proposed. This video is a year old. So they've already been proposing.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
That this is not just happenstance. They just didn't fumble upon this. Mr. Milikowski, that Polak, has been talking about war for the last 3 decades at least. And so he's been talking about war with Iran for absolutely 3 decades. He's been planning for it. He's been petitioning. And now you get a certain man in the White House that has an open ear to Mr. Milokoski. And what are they doing?
Congress is considering legislation that would update the military draft process. The proposals would automatically register men for the draft on their 18th birthday. It would also require women to enter. They're making their way through the House and Senate, but have a very slim chance of becoming law. It also wouldn't reinstate the draft, compelling service right away.
That's powerful. It shows intent right there. If we was in court, we see intent. Now, the way it was formed back then, it didn't pass. It didn't pass with the women in there, but they certainly considered it. And so they took the women out and just left it as men. But there were people really, really uptight about that. And people from a certain alphabet community was like, we want equal rights. We want to get our heads blown off just as easy as a man can get his head blown off. You know, and that means that's women across the board. And when we put earlier, we're talking about 18 to 65. See, you may say, my little 18-year-old daughter, she may be strong enough. You know, she runs track. She does soccer. She may survive. But we're not only talking about 18-year-olds. You're 40. You're 50. You're 60. You're 65, you thought you was about to get that retirement going on, that Social Security or whatever. You get a M16 and some combat boots. All right? This is what they're planning, and we're going to go through that. Once again, being a spiritualist, we don't go off words. We don't go off words. We look at your fruit. We look at what you have done in the past, and that's the indication of what you're going to do in the future. And that, what they have done in the past is horrible. It is absolutely atrocious. If crap hit the fan, then you begin to see these people digging into the cracks trying to find people that's going to fight a rich man's war. Most of these wars are rich men wars. You know, it's not really the poor people woke up this morning and said anything about Iran. Mm-hmm. The average citizen woke up and saying, how am I going to pay my mortgage, my lights, put away some money, minimal investments, this, that, and the other, you know, health, whatever it may be. Nobody thought about Iran. Iran was no imminent threat. But now let them tell it. On every news channel, they're talking about how it was an existential threat.
False flag attacks tend to be pivotal points for propaganda. You know, like 9/11 tends to be something that rallies the troops. And it gets them ready to go to war against these people who otherwise they wouldn't consider going to war with. You wouldn't be thinking about Afghanistan. Most people, even today, couldn't point out where Afghanistan is on the map. But yet they've sent so many troops out there. We talked about in another podcast how was it 6,000 U.S. service members died in Afghanistan, I think it was, because of the propaganda. But then you have veterans coming back saying, I really wasted my time there fighting for these rich people for no real reason. This wasn't to protect, freedom. Now there's the war with Iran, so it's the same thing. It's this propaganda that makes you feel patriotic about going to kill somebody for some country. Really, it's for Donald Trump or it's for his sons. Donald Trump is a draft dodger.
The last, I can't number, but the last few presidents have all been draft dodgers. Well, let me not say all of them, but we know that Bill Clinton was. All right, and I think George Bush Jr. was the only one that probably served. I don't know if Biden, no, he's a career politician.
Yeah.
All right, and so were it not for George Bush Jr., I don't think Senior would. Senior may have went to the military, George Bush Sr., but those days are over. Who's in the politician right now? Lawyers and rich people. That's what it is. It takes billions of dollars to run for the presidency, and typically that's not somebody who was a sergeant or corporal. All right, and so these are people who know nothing about warfare. We look at some of the words of this presidency, speaking boldly, broadly, bearish. That's only the talk of people who never been, man. War is humbling.
George W. Bush. Yeah, I mean, he served, but he was in the National Guard.
He was in the National Guard, yeah.
So, I mean, George H.W. Bush was in the U.S. Navy, but last president with military experience was a National Guardsman, which is...
Who was before him? What about before
his
him?
Father, George H.W. Bush.
Ronald Reagan, was he in?
Ronald Reagan.
He was in the military?
U.S. Army, Air Force.
What about Jimmy Carter?
Jimmy Carter graduated Naval Academy.
Okay, he was a farmer.
1946, so after the war anyway.
Yeah.
Served on submarines, Gerald Ford, Richard Nixon. But yeah, it says George H.W. Bush was the last president to have served in combat. Noted soldier's angel. So, yeah, most presidents, no military experience at all. And yet they have charged to determine whether or not to have a draft, compulsory service, or to send soldiers into battle.
Right. They have full authority over your life, giving you this placebo that you have freedom. You know, when they start enacting these emergency powers acts, that literally suspends, martial law just simply means all of your rights have, for the most part, have been temporarily suspended. And they do what they want. They do what they will. And part of, once again, this draft that we're talking about today, if stuff really hit the fan, trust me, they're going to enact this. And I think that will be a big problem. I don't think, regardless of the false flag, there are some people right now, they're too knowledgeable right now. They are predicting a false flag coming. And so no matter what is done, these people are going to be skeptical, just like these videos from Israel. All of these proof of life videos for Mr. Milakoski, that Polak. And that's a whole nother broadcast. We're going to bring that up too. But I would simply say there needs to be a psychoanalysis of what's going on.
And I would say I think they already tried to do a false flag hack that failed. They had that dude in, was it Texas?
That's right.
With the hoodie on that said property of Allah.
Yeah, an Iranian shirt.
Yeah, they underneath it had an Iranian shirt. That was just and the beautiful thing, everybody was like, this is too perfect for it to be real.
But they're doing that because they have no respect for you. They have no reverence for you. They have an agenda, they have a will, and they're going to push that agenda and that will upon you. And a part of that agenda is you giving up your life. You giving up your life. So let's look at some of the points of this act that was passed in December 18th, 2025. As I said before, they make preparations, and they've been preparing for this for quite some time, and you dutifully giving your life over was a part of it. They never came to your house, knock, knock, knock. Are you ready to give your life? No? Okay, we move on. They already banked on it. They banked on it. And we're going to show you that they're serious about it. It's not as easy as saying, no, I don't think I want to go. No, I don't want my son to go. Let's read some of these points that we pulled up about what happened.
All right, so says in December 2025, Congress did not pass a law to reinstate military draft, but they did enact a significant change to how registration for potential future drafts work. They have automated selective service registration. President Trump signed the fiscal year 2026 National Defense Authorization Act, NDAA, into law on December 18th, 2025. This legislation includes a provision that transitions the United States from manual to automatic registration for the selective service. How it works, instead of young men aged 18 to 25 having to manually sign up within 30 days of their 18th birthday, the selective service system will now use other federal databases, such as Social Security Administration records, to automatically register them.
You know, that key word, automatic, computerized. You know, we're talking
AI.
AI, there you go. You know, everybody's talking about that watchful eye. They're talking about flock cameras. All of this is in a database now, and they have a reason for it. You're not going to be able to escape. This is what they're trying to do. It's automatic right now. So, as I said before, didn't even read that, 30 days before your 18th birthday, technically you're still 17. So, you know, who knows if they didn't do something at 16. To make sure that you're primed and you're ready and you're doing this so that you may cast your child in the fire, the meat grinder for Molech. Let's continue.
Who is included? This law applies to all male U.S. citizens and male legal residents in the 18 to 25 age range.
So remember what we said, they included women because that alphabet community was like, yeah, we need that in there, but somebody caught sense and was like, nah, but they're still fighting for it. They're still fighting for it. Let's continue.
While some earlier proposals consider including women, the final enacted version only applies to men.
All right, now, temporarily. And so once again, when fit hit the shan and things begin to pop off, they're going to start adding everybody in there. We're going to show you that. Continue.
Is a draft being activated? No, this change only updates the registration process. It does not activate a draft or force anyone into active military service.
So we see the cleanup right here. No. There's not a draft. No. The USS Gerald Ford is just going over to the Red Sea, just going to the Persian Gulf. They have not, and they will not fire upon Iran. Oh, no. That's not going to happen where we are now. Fast forward in the future, it's happening. All right, they're preparing for a draft. There's no draft now, but they are in great preparation for a draft. That's all it takes is some false flag or some major event to happen before all the halls of Congress are filled and everybody is talking about war. Mm-hmm. And again, you have, people of a certain nation in the Middle East is rubbing their grubby hands like, yes, this is what we always wanted, the Greater Israel Project. We could go and even grab Iran. And we can grab Afghanistan and Iraq and Saudi Arabia and Jordan and all the way down to Egypt and even Lebanon and even Libya if we want it. And even Kenya. They can do all these things in their mind. They are literally getting other folk to fight their battles for them. But there's been a big thing out there now. They was talking about you start that draft. Why don't you start first and foremost? First in line should be Barron Trump. Mm-hmm. Barron Trump, boot him up. Put him in a Humvee, the first in line that's going to land on Crag Island. What's the name of the island?
Yeah, Crag
Island. Crag Island. Yeah, put him there. Matter of fact, let him be a part of the parachute jumpers. All right, let him jump out first, and everybody watch for a second. If he survived, then, everybody else go. He should be the first. But we know that's not happening. They have already talked about, he's too tall. Yeah, come on. Come on now. Mm. You got people who have all kind of medical issues when they start drafting. They still overlook that. People have medical conditions, all kind of hypertension and heart problems. And they're like, let's continue. But that's how rich people get out. That's how they get out of the draft. Isn't that how Trump got out of the draft?
Yeah. We actually got a video. It's not on Trump, but talking about who tends to get drafted. Mm. You want to pull that up?
Pull that
Engineer?
up. Not only him, though, before you pull that up, Trump got a daughter named Kai Trump, a granddaughter, I should say. And she was on, I believe, YouTube or TikTok, going out while the troops were dying, being bombed by Iran, going to some high-end boutique talking about how this $80 coffee is, as she's being escorted by the Secret Service. And so living it up. The lap of luxury. Went out to coffee and then got the receipt. It was $380-something coffee. Being escorted around while people can't eat. People are going broke now. Can't fill their tanks up. Fuel prices is out of control, and she's lollygagging about coffee.
I wish we had that clip of Trump where we brought up in another podcast where he said, servicemen died and more will die too. It's cost I'm willing to pay.
Yeah. And Matter of fact, they did, there was a cartoon out there.
Yeah,
that's what it was.
Yeah.
Speak on that.
Yeah, what was that? I forgot. Laura Farquhar.
Yeah.
He was like, many of you may die, but it's a cost I'm willing to pay. That's exactly how Trump sounds. He is somebody who is willing to put your life on the line, never having had put his life on the line, willing to send you there when his children are out here not having any sort of cares, paying $300 for coffee.
Right.
And yet you will go to Iran potentially and face, a horrible enemy. This would be, if there were boots on the ground in Iran, this would be probably the worst war that United States has fought in a long time.
Before you send that clip, think about the trade-off. You are willing to give your whole existence and your whole bloodline. You may not have had a child. You're 18, you're 19 years old. Giving your whole bloodline to a useless war that was instigated by people who really don't care. Now, what is the reciprocation? Like, when you was late on your rent, did the government just swoop down and say, ha-ha, I got you? When you couldn't pay that car note, they said, I got you on this. When you couldn't afford this and afford that, or when you was in that trouble and somebody died and you was there, how are we going to pay for this funeral? Did the government come down and say, I got you? No, it was like, GoFundMe. No, little peon. You go get it yourself. Oh, we need to go to war, though.
Yeah.
You need to do your duty and give me your blood, your child, so I can sacrifice him to Moloch. You got it.
Yeah, I got that video of Lord Farquaad. As he's talking about,
AKA Trump.
Go ahead.
Some of you may die, but it's a sacrifice I am willing to make.
They gave him a USA hat. Gave him a USA hat. They should put a MAGA hat on.
There we go. It's comical, but it's serious.
Yeah.
Serious. You got a joker for a commander-in-chief, and he's playing Russian roulette with your life, your children's life, your whole bloodline, your whole existence. And they have the backing and the force to do it. And it's not him. He's being manipulated by powers that be outside. We can start with AIPAC, and we can move all the way over to Israel. Who's the guy, Joe Kent, that just resigned?
Yeah.
Top of what? High levels of security?
It was like counterterrorism.
Right. And he's in the know. He turned around and literally, in so many words, said that there was no existential threat. Iran had no threat to us whatsoever. Give no threat to us. It was the Israelis that compelled the president, the commander-in-chief, to go do that. And I can't live with myself. You know why? This man went, I think they said he did 11 tours of duty in Iraq and Afghanistan. He has a wife, I believe she was in the military or something in government, that died by an IED, I believe, in one of those little wars. This man served his whole life as a servant, and he looked at it and said, with a good conscience, I cannot continue. So I must remove myself. And you know what they did afterward? You a chump.
Yep.
You wick. You anti-Semitic. If a man that gave his whole life, gave his wife, she died. She's a martyr for this country. And they turned around. You got that. They call him now Talmud Tate. You got what's his name? Officer Tate. Tatum or something like that.
Okay.
They got that cheeseburger going around talking about, you a coward. I can't respect you. This man haven't served in anything. They said he was an officer for about 3 years and then he quit. If you're talking about quitting is bad, you quit. But they're saying that they're giving him $7,000 every podcast when he promotes the Israeli agenda.
Wow.
This man came out of his mouth, his pie hole, and dissed a man that dedicated his entire life to the service of America. But with a good conscience, he backed out. You couldn't say, hey, you know what? Let's examine him a little bit more. Let's see if there's anything that he has and he's talking about that's have any kind of legitimacy to it. You didn't do that. Immediately like that, talking about he's a chump, he's a wuss, he's a coward. All of these ad hominem attacks, as opposed to attacking or examining what he's talking about, you attacking that man's character. And that man, as terms of a U.S. civilian, stands upright. I mean, there's no charge. He's not in the Epstein files. That man is not in the Epstein files. But the man that's in the Epstein file, you talking about, he's great, he's honorable.
See, that's what happens when you don't go to war. You got too much time on your hands.
There you go.
You spending time on the islands, kicking it up because you're not in war. You're not in the military.
Come on. Right. And so you got time to ponder on who you're going to kill and what children are going to turn into beef jerky and what kind of cheese pizza and grape soda you're going to be drinking. Too much time. Too much money, too.
Yeah.
You got something?
No, I wanted to play a video.
Go ahead.
There's a Fox interview, actually, where the press secretary being interviewed, and she talked about Trump, whether or not he would institute the draft. We can go ahead and play that.
On Air Force One over the weekend, Carol, I want to get your take about this idea of troops on the ground. Mothers out there are worried that we're going to have a draft, that they're going to see their sons get in and daughters get involved in this. What do you want to say about the president's plans for troops on the ground? As we know, it's been largely an air campaign up until now.
Mm-hmm. It has been, and it will continue to be, and President Trump wisely does not remove options off of the table. I know a lot of politicians like to do that quickly.
Now we can start right there. We need to translate the politician answer. This is obviously his press secretary. She is going to do anything to make the Trump administration look good. That means he will do it if he decides to do it. That's what that means. She's basically admitting.
Correction. He will do it if the Israeli demand that he does it.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Yep.
Minor correction.
It is on the table that there will be a draft. It is not something that is completely dismissed. She makes it sound good. Any wise person would keep their options open. That option is you. She said you are an option. Are you 18 to 25? And if times get really tough, are you 18 to 35? Or times get even tougher, are you 65 up to 65 years old? Well, you are an option.
If they invade California, are you 85? Do you have a pulse?
Yeah.
Take this. Well, we don't have any more guns. Take this bow and arrow. All right, they're going to throw everything at it so that they can keep their power. Go ahead.
We got an article, too, I wanted to bring up. You can hit that, cato.org. They talk about Iran. And what a war in Iran would be like. Now, we already see that when this whole operation first started, that it was almost perceived it was going to be like Venezuela. We're going to go in, we're going to kill the leader, we're going to back out, and we're going to be done. And that's not at all what happened. This is already going on weeks longer than what was already expected. I think that first attack was so-called February 28th. It's almost a month later, and it's still ongoing. And so this says, reading from where it says, if you scroll down, there's a paragraph that says, first, the sheer size of the ground force. First, the sheer size of the ground force will be staggering. Any serious American invasion of Iran would likely rival or exceed the scale of Vietnam or the 1991 Gulf War, making it the largest U.S. military undertaking since the Second World War.
Wow.
Iran's landmass and population size alone would prove a daunting hurdle. The country is nearly 4 times the size of Iraq, and its population is more than 3 times larger. And so, not only is the country, the landmass large, it is a very hostile environment. Any sea area is surrounded by mountains. So if the Americans try to do like D-Day, they can't do D-Day. Imagine doing D-Day, but instead of sandy beaches up to grassy fields, you're hiking up a mountain.
I was just seeing some footages of that. We're talking about a mountain cliff that cuts off and then the water hits it right there. So you would have to hit the coast and then climb up this high ridge and then get to the top. Come on, man.
Yeah.
And it's probably booby-trapped all the way up, you know?
Absolutely. And I want to ask a question just for those people who may be at home. You mentioned D-Day. Could you explain what that is?
D-Day was in World War II. And people probably seen the videos. I told you, Hakan, watch Saving Private Ryan.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Anybody watch Saving Private Ryan, that's D-Day. As soon as the doors open on a boat, you're getting sprayed up with light machine gun fire, artillery, and all that. And so, now, like you said, D-Day was on a beach. A beach. Anybody been to a beach? It's flat land for miles. It's open. But now, what you have in Iran, you have mountains, deserts, and these things create a bottleneck. And we have a bottleneck. Now, imagine D-Day, but instead of having to spray across whole miles of desert, sand beaches, you got one little avenue, one little valley that all the troops have to pass through. That is what a war in Iran would be like.
Very difficult. Extremely difficult. We're talking about Vietnam, as it just said, World War II. We're talking about hundreds of thousands and millions of people possibly dying. And both of those wars that they mentioned, World War II and Vietnam, all had to draft.
Yeah.
That's one thing we see in common. All had the draft. Now, there was no draft in the Gulf War or the Persian Gulf or the Iraqi War because, you was essentially fighting children. Militaristically speaking, you were fighting people that were unarmed, people that had borrowed old weapons from Russia, and that they was trying to fight. But that's not what you're fighting here. You're fighting prominent powers.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we can go back to that article. I wanted to bring out a little other point of that. But that's definitely a good point because even Vietnam, you're fighting still a ragtag kind of militia group being supplied by the nation. But Iran is a trained military. They don't have the same advancements as the United States, but they still produce their own armament. They still have a regulated militia that has been studying America and how they've gone to war for decades.
Exactly. Actually, since the Shah, since the 50s and 60s and whatnot, you had opposition forces there. But I will add, if it's simply an asymmetrical war with Iran, America would win with overwhelming authority. But that's not the case. That's not the case. That wasn't the case even with Afghanistan. A lot of these wars, you have other powers like Russia giving weaponry to the Taliban or whatever it may be. But in this particular case, it's different. It's not subtle. It's not a tacit giving. They're openly giving weapons. China is openly using their satellites and armament. You can't count the planes now that have landed in Iran. We're talking about heavy military planes dropping off all kinds of munitions. And they like to put that propaganda out there on the legacy media news that they only have 18 missiles left.
Yeah.
It's only 18. You remember when Russia was going through their thing, they was talking about Russia is making missiles out of washing machine parts. Crazy. Look what Russia is doing. It's propaganda that only the weak begin to ingest, but the strong understand that that's pure propaganda. Let's continue.
Yeah, let's go back to that article. So where it says, look at the size, looking to the invasion of Iraq in 2003. Let's pull that part out. So it says, look into the invasion of Iraq in 2003. A similar invasion of Iran, given its population size, will require as many as 1.6 million troops.
Wow.
Those estimates appear more daunting still when compared with the actual force structure of the U.S. military, which boasts about 2.1 million in active service, reserves, and the National Guard. Of these, only about 20% are combat troops. So what's 20% of 2.1 million? 10% would be 200,000. So 20%, that's 400,000.
400,000, yeah.
Well, you need 1.6 million. Where are you going to get the rest of these 1.6 million from?
I got a brilliant idea. You.
There you go.
Your neighbor.
Yep.
They're willing to give their life.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Nah, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. There would be a severe gap that needs to be filled. A major
deficit. And they're estimating 1.6 million. I asked you before in another class, find out how many people died in World War II. World War I first, then World War II, and then Vietnam. See, this is a poor guesstimation. As I said, if the Iranians were fighting with their Fatah missiles and whatnot, and America went to war, there would be some casualties. There would be some major casualties. Iran would lose that war, but America will lose as well. All right? But America will eventually overthrow them. And I say America will lose because you're going to lose a lot of people. America's not used to losing hundreds of thousands of people. All right, but Iran will be overthrown, but that cannot happen. Why? You can't have a democracy on the border of the Caspian Sea. You can't have a democracy that close or an American proxy state that close to China. A lot of people are saying that America is staging for a war with China. China gets lots of its oil from Iran. And so if China invade Taiwan and America has a base in Iran, like it has a base in Saudi Arabia, like it has a base in Qatar and Yemen, and all throughout the Middle East, then they have a lily pad effect going on. They can lob missiles really fast. So China don't want that. Russia doesn't want that. And so what are they doing? They're aiding, abetting, and supporting. And so I think even Kim Jong-un of North Korea, I think he turned around and said, you need us. You need me, buddy. I'm right here. Yeah. Ready to send some troops. And another thing, Pakistan is right next door to Iran. Pakistan is a nuclear power. They're a Muslim state as well. And a lot of the tribes from Iran are actually in Pakistan. And Pakistan does not want America next door to them. They're all friendly when it comes to trade, but in terms of who they are, what they are, to them, America is still the great Satan. All right, so there's a lot of forces. If he had great spiritual advisors next to him, they would have said, this is not the place you want to invade. This is not a place you want to attempt to take over. You tried it in places that was closer to Israel. You got Iraq that's really not that far from Israel that you couldn't take over. You don't want to get deeper into the heart of it. And before we go on, those who have an opinion on this, because we know that there's some people out there politically savvy, contact us. Come in through Zoom. We have that feature. That's why we're going live. We're going live for you so that you can get in on this. You want to get that information out there?
Yep. You go to the pinned comment on the YouTube chat. You'll see the Zoom link. You can click that, join in, and we'll open the floor to talk with anybody who's joined the Zoom chat.
And anybody who's been in the military, be it the Army, the Navy, the Marines, the Air Force, Space Force, National Guard, whatever it may be, call in. Tell us your experience. How was it coming through, living that lifestyle you may have been prepared for? Is the common Joe on the street, the common guy out there popping his Percocets and his Mollies and smoking on is he ready to do boot camp and hear somebody screaming in his face and be thrown on the front line? Is he ready? Let us know. Call in. Let us know. We want your opinion. It really counts. All right, so you had those stats about the number of people that was killed in World War I, the Great War?
Yeah, so World War I estimated totals 15 to 22 million deaths in World War I, which is basically just a European war at that.
Right.
And I got the American casualties as well.
For World War I?
Yep.
Let's see.
Which would have been, they say, wounded 204,000, deaths 106,000. And America entered the war late.
Yep.
They entered the war pretty much toward the end.
How many were wounded?
204,000.
Now imagine after you given your life to Molech.
That's in 1 year, 1917, 1918.
Yeah, exactly. But imagine giving your life to the powers that be, to Benjamin Milokoski, that Polak, and then you get wounded and you come back home and you have to sit on a corner talking about, help me, I'm a Vietnam vet. It should be an absolute abominable threat. You think people in ancient times, especially biblical time, let their warriors go to war, put their life on the line, let them come back home and be destitute? To be barren, to be homeless? It doesn't matter. You could have lived a life and you could have been in drugs. It don't matter. You should get and be welcomed everywhere. You should never, ever have to worry about a place to live when you done given your life. But that lets you know. That really lets you know what they really think about those people that give in their life. You can be tossed away. Let's move over to World War II. What are the stats on that?
World War II, estimated 70 to 85 million deaths globally.
Wow.
Yeah, million. American deaths approximately. Actually, okay, so casualties, which is killed and wounded, is 1,076,245 is what they have for all casualties. So that's wounded and killed.
Repeat that again.
1 million Americans.
Oh,
1 million.
Wow.
And 1,076,000 casualties, wounded, killed. Military deaths, or essentially all U.S. deaths in World War II, is 418,000.
Lots of death. Lots of death. And so let's move over to Vietnam now.
So Vietnam, they have total deaths in the Vietnam War is 1.3 million. 1.35 million.
See, that's where they get those stats from that article you read a little earlier. They said 1.6 is needed, They're talking about, this is what happened in the past, and this is like a Vietnam or World War II. And so if we stay conventional, it's going to be about 1.6 million people dying. And that was a war that they instilled the draft.
Yep.
And so it's no different. I would actually say that this is worse than Vietnam. Vietnam was not manufacturing weapons. Vietnam had no Fatah missiles. Vietnam had no serious backing from Russia. Yes, China backed them, but this was true guerrilla warfare. So you don't only have guerrilla warfare, but you got what these people will call a holy war. All right, the Vietnam wasn't talking about Buddhist this or any of that. They were communists, as a matter of fact. And so they didn't have that religious component. This is a serious religious war to the Iranians. These people are Shia Muslim, and they believe in what they believe in, and they believe that, like Ayatollah Khomeini, he could have went underground hiding, but he thought that to be dishonorable. That's how they got him. They didn't get him because he was slipping. That man said, my people are above ground, I am above ground. And he went home and sipped tea with his family and said, if this is the last day on earth, then it's the last day on earth. He could have went 100, 200, 300 feet underground, but he said, I'm not going to do that, because I want to be martyred. Mm-hmm. That man looked death in the face and said, I want to be martyred. And then he sipped tea and died. See, these are the kind of people that the American soldiers, you may be fighting.
Yep.
It's insane.
And you see they had this resolve because the hope, the idea was that you kill the head, that the whole government's going to collapse. And it did not. You actually have a bunch of people, bunch of Iranians rallying in the streets. I saw a video of Iranians at a rally, and then bombs were dropped near them, and they looked, and they kept rallying.
They started putting their slogan out there.
Yeah.
God is great in Arabic. God is great. Bombs going off. God is great.
Yep.
I don't know a Christian that would do that. Bombs dropping. They're like, get the heck out of here.
Yep.
I'm out.
Yep.
I'm out.
I got Americans in Vietnam. So total deaths is 58,000 Americans. Injured approximately 303,000. Now, the interesting part right here, it says total service. Around 2.7 million Americans served in the region during Vietnam. That's just Vietnam. Remember, these are basically, I don't want to say ragtag, but these are ragtag
Third-tier type states.
Yeah. Being supplied by, China and Soviet Union at the time. And so they're being supplied, and yet 2 million, it took almost 3 million Americans serving there. What about Iran? That has their own trained military, that has their own armament, and also has China and Russia backing them. Mm-hmm. How many more? And the terrain is much more unforgiving. I mean, a jungle is bad in Vietnam. Mm-hmm. But what about mountains and deserts? And this is what Americans potentially would have to go through because of another foreign government telling them to go to war here.
And we have the blessing of hindsight. How many people can say, I'm so thankful we went to Vietnam? I mean, it improved our station and our status so tremendously. I mean, I think about it all the time. We woke up, Vietnam was good. Yeah. All of these thousands of people died because of what? You didn't want communism there? America lost the war, and what happened? They evolved anyway. People are taking trips to Vietnam right now, staying out there, and capitalism is all over there. But that lets you know that we don't have brilliant geniuses running the military nor the political structure that we live in today. These people are like silverback gorillas, just war, 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 I want war. You ever see that Linda Graham? I mean, keep calling him, there's a lot of rumors out there about the dude. Dude never had a wife. Dude's going around and been caught at certain venues that are unseemly. But this immoral character, supposedly, allegedly, is going about every time you talk. He's a war hawk, never spent one day in the military or any kind of war. But yet telling you that the Iranians are a threat to the Israelis, therefore they are a threat to us. You have to explain that. You have to explain that to me. There's a lot of threats out here, but we have nobody pounding their chest. You, us, me, we are the fodder. We are literally cannon fodder for these people. And when you look at that show, you brought up Saving Private Ryan. This is how these people fight. Before modern day fight, I don't know if you remember the Redcoats, the British, and how they fought. They lined up. They got their muskets.
Yep.
Aim! And you just standing there while they aim. Pow! And you drop. And then the next team, the opponent's supposed to get that's how they fight. But they still do that today. You think they don't. They go in and say these people have an estimation of, 10,000 bullets. We're going to send 15,000 men. If you see Saving Private Ryan, there was no strategy. There was no hide behind it. They just, you go and get shot. And just get shot up. And when you fall, use him as shield. Use him as a shield. And they just kept going like ants on the Germans until they did not have enough bullets or they were just overwhelmed.
Suicide mission.
That's really what it is. The Mission Impossible for real. Ain't no Tom Cruise. Ain't no starring Tom Cruise. It's starring you. Mission Impossible. And then they got this thing called mission creep. Mission creep is when it start off with, we're just going to send ships out there to survey the land. We're just going to bomb. It's just going to all be aerial. We're only going to send 4,000. We're going to send 10. And then going to send, next, you got to get out here. You got to come out. We in too deep. They let it be known when you're too deep. We can't walk away now. We've already lost 20,000 people. What we going to do, walk away? And then they start that campaign of you being not anti-Shemitic. This is going to be different. You're going to be anti-Shemitic and unpatriotic. Unpatriotic, and both of them together, you're going to be a scarlet letter. You're going to be walking down the street, draft dodger.
Yep.
Get your stuff together. Get ready. We're saying all of this so that you can get prepared. That's why.
Yeah. And I think, the U.S. government is getting worse at hiding these false flags and making it seem like
true.
There's a real reason. World War I and II, I would argue America really didn't have a good reason to go into it. But they were pulled in and they decided to go, and it helped them get out of the World War II specifically, helped them get out of the Great Depression and all that, helped them become the great superpower that they are today. But when you start getting to Vietnam, it starts getting a little more sketchy. They had a way to rally the troops. They said you're fighting terror and evil in Germany, and Hideki Tojo in Japan, he's this horrible guy. We have to stop them. Hitler is killing these people, genocide and all that, and people willingly, patriotically win. But then in Vietnam, people were thinking, Gulf of Tonkin, what's going on? What did these people do to me? I mean, you have famous people like Muhammad Ali.
Correct.
Saying, when did they call me anything that you call me at home? And yet, and now we see these wars like Iran. I mean, when you look at Trump trying to explain why Iran is so bad, and you have to fight, all he can say, remember October 7th. And these people, they help terrorists, and that's it. There's nothing where you can say he is in Iran, they are affecting your life today.
Right.
Nothing.
They did a blockade on oil and gas for America only. And they stopped you from driving. None of that.
Yeah.
They were selling oil on the open market, had no problem. But it's other people, and you spoke about that, right? About how the melanated black soldiers went into Vietnam, and some were met with leaflets saying, black man, this is not your war. Mm-hmm. Go home, black man. And Muhammad Ali said that as well. But you talked about the Ayatollah.
Yeah.
During that Iranian hostage crisis.
Yeah, was it 79 or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
It was a hostage crisis where I think 400 Americans were taken hostage in Iran. And there was like a few black people and a few women, and they let all of them go. The Iranians let the black people go. They let the women go. They said, this has nothing to do with you. We want the Americans. You guys are oppressed at home already.
Right.
So black people, you can go ahead and go. And they kept all the white Americans.
Letting you know that they had a conscience. And I would think that in the way that they're talking right now, it's not even about racist to them. I think it's all about, because they appeal to the people. They're saying the American people are good people. The politicians are bad. I've heard that on several occasions. People are saying that, even the Russians were saying that. The American people are good, but your politicians have gone astray. And there's one group that keeps these two superpowers at odds. There's a lot of people saying Russia is like they're not the USSR anymore. There's a democracy. There's some capitalism. Yes, there's some corruption over there, but there's no corruption in America. But you know that there's a big consortium of Russian Jews. You know, Ukraine is right next door. Ukraine is right next door. This is the heartland of the Khazars. And then we talk about the Bolsheviks and all, it was all there. Heavy consortium that's still over there aiding and abetting and in government with Russia, right? And this is what you was talking about not too long ago, how Russia has signed some kind of compact with Israel.
Yeah, I think they have like a non-aggression pact with Israel. Israel's not supposed to supply Ukraine with any weapons. So now Russia's coming back and saying we won't directly come against you. You know, so even though they haven't a security agreement, or not a security agreement, but some sort of agreement with Iran where they trade technology and stuff, they still they're not getting directly involved.
I believe that is the only reason that Russia has not openly backed Iran, because the same way that AIPAC and you have this jewelry all involved with America, it's the exact same thing in Russia. And people have asked the question, why is that America and Russia at odds with each other? There is a reason, and it's way more than what you may think. These people benefit by having these two pit bulls at odds with each other. All right. And it is there. And we, again, the average person, the average citizen is charged to pay the cost. Be wise, walk circumspect. Again, be knowledgeable in these last days so that you don't go for the slop that the news is throwing out. The news is going to start throwing out slop. And you, like a sow, like a pig, are expected to just gobble it up. Same thing that happened. We keep talking about 9/11. All of it was play the national anthem. Please play it, you know. Stand up strong. Get teary eyes. Go join the military. Go fight. Fight for who? Benjamin Netanyahu said we need Iraq bomb and we need Afghanistan bomb. It's on tape. Go look up the dancing Jews of 9/11. These people were expecting that false flag. They was outside at a high perch, I believe, in New Jersey, waiting on it. And a woman said, this is so suspicious. These foreigners out here dancing. And then when it happened, they was like, yeah. Then she called the police on them. She thought they had something to do with it because they did. And they arrested them. And then I guess the state, you know, told them, you got to let them go. And they went straight to Israel. This is what happens. But once again, you can either be a small man, you could be that person that has been fed the slop and you ate the slop, or you can sit back and say, that's not me. I'm not your guinea pig. So we was talking about Vietnam and all the people that died, and that kind of death made them bring forth the draft. Let's read that, how many people were drafted in Vietnam, or how the process went forth.
The Vietnam draft system was implemented in two distinct phases. An initial period managed by local draft boards, and later, more famous national lottery system introduced in 1969.
That's crazy. You never won the monetary lottery. But all kind of people hitting the lottery on this one. Yeah. And as I said before, a spiritualist can examine the people that you are amongst, and you judge them by their fruit. You look at the past, and that's an indicator of what they're going to do in the future, and even more. How did they do it? Let's read.
Registration. All men were required to register with the Selective Service within 30 days of their 18th birthday.
The same thing is still happening today. Let's read on.
The federal government set manpower quotas for each state, which were then divided amongst thousands of local draft
quotas. We've heard that before. The police department got a quota. Oh, they're going to get that money up. All right, they're saying so many people, we need so many tickets, we're going to get that. We need so much manpower, you must get that. Read the next part.
Oldest first rule. Boards generally called up eligible men, classified as 1A, starting with the oldest first, up to age 26.
Check that out. You thought they was going to go for the 18-year-old first? They said, no. We need some competent people. Let's go to the 26. Let's start with them and then work our way on down. But it wasn't over. It wasn't over. Let's read on.
You want to keep reading?
Yeah, right there. Deferment.
Deferment. Many men avoided service through legal deferments for college. 2S, marriage.
So
with
that was
children.
the classification right there. And that's what Bill Clinton did. That's how he got his master's degree. He kept going to college. Then he got like a quadruple master's or something like that. But let's read on.
Or medical reasons. This led to criticism that the system unfairly targeted poor and minority populations.
So No difference. You brought that article out or that video out that it's the poor people that actually pay for rich men's war. And so rich people can say, hey, you want to get that triple master's in basket weaving? I know you always love basket weaving. Go ahead and sign up for another 4 years. It's 6, 8, whatever. And as long as the war is there, that person is in, college, Mm-hmm. Go ahead and read on. Let's go down to,
Key statistics.
Yeah, there you go.
Total drafted. Approximately 2.2 million men were drafted during the Vietnam era.
Over 2 million people.
So I guess the statistic I saw earlier was wrong because this one says representing a total of about 25% of the total 8.7 million who served.
Boy, that was Milikowski put them stats out that you got. And put them out there for you.
Yeah.
Who resisted?
Over 1 million individuals are estimated to have evaded the draft by fleeing to countries like Canada or facing imprisonment.
Some people, you talked about that. It was Muhammad Ali that said, hey, I ain't going.
Yeah.
And people don't know that if you are in ministry, there are some things, but you can become a conscientious objector and whatnot. And that's what he was doing. He was saying that I'm an Islamic minister, this, that, and the other. And if you watch his movie, you can see they took it out on him financially. It wasn't easy. And he was a man with money. It was not easy. But other folks said, we're moving to Canada, we're moving to Mexico. Mm-hmm. Think about that. You can have Mexicans on the border like, no. No immigration, no.
Yeah.
And you have to stay here. And then they have AI. They got flock cameras everywhere. They know your tag number. They know everything. That's when that dystopian hellscape show up. That's when they start saying, you know what? We got these national ID cards. Everybody's trying to escape the draft. You cannot buy milk or you can't buy gasoline unless you put your credit card and then your national ID in. What you going to do? You're going to ask somebody else to do it, and then they're going to pass a law. If you've caught buying something for somebody else, 10 years in jail. You can see it really getting dystopian right then.
Yep. And for anybody who wants to join the Zoom and talk to us, you can definitely do that. Did you recently sign up for the Selective Service? Did you go to college have to do that? Did you serve any time in the military? Have you had any combat experience? Definitely come in and talk to us and, talk about some of the things that's going on today. So join us on the Zoom link in the description.
You know why we don't have any calls? They're all patriotic. They're ready to go serve. I know you got your son.
Yeah.
You went and bought him his BDUs already. They're going to give him his BDUs. You don't have to go get them. I know you're ready to cash, your son over to him, to Molech. But if you're not, and you're concerned about this, go ahead. Give us reach out. Let's read on a little bit more.
You want to go down to World War II draft?
Come on, let's do that. So that was Vietnam. Let's move over to World War II. These are major conflicts where they conscript, simply meaning they come and take you. You force you to go. All right, now these are old, but we're going to bring it up to the present as well. Let's read on.
During World War II, the U.S. drafted over 10 million men using the Selective Training and Service Act of 1940.
From 1940. So let's look at what they did in the past so we can predict what they're going to do in the future. Remember, World War II was a serious conflict. Let's read.
Which required men aged 18 to 65 to register.
18 to 65. You old geezers thought you was getting out of this? Oh, no, you not. I mean, they're going to try to, talk about, we just needed to, but it was getting serious. And go down to registration real quick.
Initially, men 21 through 35 registered after Pearl Harbor. This expanded to ages 18 to 64.
There it is, mission creep. After Pearl Harbor, what was that? The false flag.
Yeah.
There are all kind of documentaries said that they knew that the Japanese was flying over. Radar caught them. And they was like, shush, be quiet. We need a reason to join this, get heavy in this war. And so that's called a false flag. They could have easily came and combated that, but they didn't. And so what happened after that false flag? Initially, men from 21 to 35, they was ready. Let me go sign up. And then that draft came, and they was like, yes. But when it started getting serious, they was like, yeah, you Ebenezer. Get off that mule and come on over here. Nobody is safe. And if it would have really got, I'm going to tell you this right now. One of the reasons they dropped that bomb on Hiroshima, and dropped that second one on Nagasaki was because the Japanese was ready to rumble. They knew that if you had to do some kind of land invasion, these people, what did they do all throughout, their reign? Reign terror. They wasn't simply just like, shoot. They was cutting off heads and hanging them on sticks and trees. They were doing all kind of viciousness all throughout, Manchuria and all throughout Guam and all of that. They were serious fighters, and it struck fear in the minds of the Marines, the Army, and the Navy, and all of that. And they would have went and fought. But they was like, you know what? To save millions of lives, American lives, let's drop that new atom bomb that we created and see what happened. Mm-hmm. Now, what kind of mindset do you have to have if they drop the first one and you still ain't give it? You still not give it up. They like, yeah, we ready to fight. I think it took the emperor after the second one to say, all right, hold on. They got some new technology. All right.
I heard they actually did. They were about to surrender.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I don't know what happened. They got later. I think Americans are like, we got two of them. Mm-hmm. We need to see what this other one does. This is a big experiment for us.
Con, yes. All right, let's read on.
You want me to jump down to?
Con.
See, where was I at?
You was at how they ratchet it up, mission creep. We're going to go down to classification. No, we're going to skip. Yeah, go to classification. If you think you're getting out of this, they've already been through this time and time and time again. So they got your excuses. You talk about you got bunions. Bone spurs is not going to work for you. If you got a rich father and mother, you may get out of this for bone spurs. But we're going to talk about what's happening in Ukraine. See, Ukraine is the modern example of what they do when they need somebody to hold staff, hold post. All right, that's our modern. We see, you may be saying, this is old, man. This is World War I and II, man. They're not doing that anymore. Well, we're going to show you. Ukrainians just didn't do this on their own. We're talking about EU. These people, everybody of that European Union and America told Zelensky, you must get this, and this is how your draft must be. And on top of that, I know we're going off, but we're going to talk about that when we get to Ukraine, how they suspended the elections. Mm-hmm. They got clowns before we move on talking about we only got 1,053 days left before we get a Democratic president, and all this is going to be over. You are the sickest. You need to mentally be examined. You still in the game to get rid of the Democrats, and we're going to add the Republicans, and Republicans going, we got the Democrats. We got Joe Biden in there. He did nothing. Milokoski was all in the White House, preparing, doing all of this. Anybody still playing that game, you are done. You through. It's over. You have absolutely no political savvy whatsoever. Mm-hmm. Life and death does not appertain. You're still playing political politics. You're still playing that game. You are eating that political slop that they're feeding you. Let's go ahead and look at some of the classifications.
1A, available for military service.
That means you good. They're going to stamp you immediately and say you are good for service. You're good to go.
2A or 2B, deferred due to essential war-supporting work.
All right, so you work in the factory making those hand grenades, making those missiles. Okay, you got to defer. You're still supporting the war. So if you got any kind of objection, you're going to go and make the missiles so that your son can die. Most people won't think of that. Continue.
3A, deferred due to dependents or family.
So if you're a single father and you're holding down all the children, they're saying that there was an exemption. But remember, we already read that they said they started coming and getting fathers anyway. And I think we're going to read that again as well. They changed over time. It's like, you know what? We need more people. Get somebody to hold the children. Continue.
IVF, exempted due to physical, mental, or moral unfitness.
So a lot of people are going to be playing that card. They're already aware. They know. We're going to show you that in Ukraine. Let's read on.
Induction. Once selected, men receive a postcard notice to report underwent a physical and were sent to boot camp.
That's it. You got that postcard, 2 weeks, boot camp, 3rd week, you was in the war. That's it. That's how quick it is. 4th week, you're gone. Life over. Bloodline finished. Children seeing you in a casket. Read the next one, the key aspects.
Changes over time. Initially, 21 to 35-year-olds were drafted. As the war progressed, the age range shifted, and even fathers were eventually drafted.
Even those single fathers, they had those little children at home. They was like, once again, you need to get your aunt to hold him down. We need you. So there's nothing that you can say or do to stop these people from getting you if needed. And they're talking about that's a regional conflict that can easily escalate to a world conflict, because I believe that the United Kingdom is allowing the Americans to use their base, on the island. And pictures have leaked by a lot of these, independent media, media platforms. Not the super ones, not Fox, not CNN. These people have got up, put drones up, and saw the American bombers being loaded with 2,000-pound bombs and munitions and flying off and going and doing sorties over there in Iran, then coming back and landing. And the Iranians came out and said, if the UK continue to allow America to use their air base, they will also be a target. And so you can easily see if, while I'm speaking right now, Iran sends some super missile to London and blow up something, that draft getting started next week. Tomorrow, right? Monday, so-called Monday morning. It's on. It's that quick. Get prepared, people. Get prepared. Get mentally prepared for what is about to or possibly can come and begin to alter and change your entire life. Let's read that. That physical standard.
Physical standards were strict early on.
Physical standards were you must be 6 foot tall. You have to be under 200 pounds. No obesity. None of that. And strong and dead. Let's get all of them first. And when they entered into the meat grinder and when they began to get shredded, what did they do?
But we're loosened.
You 380? And you 5'3"? Come on in, buddy. We need you.
We got some Ozempic for you.
We got some Astrazine too. And so they're talking about Barron Trump being 7 foot, almost 6'9", so whatever,
Yeah.
Okay, all right. And so if you start loosening it up, let him be the first. Let him be the first. Let's move on down, and for time's sake, who had to register?
Initially, all men aged 21 to 36. After the U.S. entered the war, this expanded to include all men aged 18 to 64.
There it is. Mission creep again. Things start off all good, fine, and dandy, and there's some selfish people out there saying, again, I'm long gone beyond 21, and I'm even past 36. I should be safe. Let them go fight the war. But it says it expanded to include all men from 18 to 64. That's why we put it in the title. And I believe we're of the day. You ever heard Ben Shapiro talking about, I don't think retirement should be a thing. Any guy think about retiring at 65, he's a clown anyway. Can't you hear that caterpillar brow, bush head Amalekite talking about why 65? I mean, if you can walk, why not, join the force?
It's crazy because what does he do for a living? He talks.
He does Torah. Didn't Tyler go to check out his people? I wouldn't be surprised they're talking about he makes millions of dollars, but he's on welfare.
Yeah.
That's the thing. They can't see free money just floating down the street. But go ahead, you were saying?
Nah, that's it. He's talking about you can't retire at 65, but all he does all day is talk. And I'm sure he runs some business, but he's not doing hard labor.
The strongest throat in the world. That's how he exercised, talking all day. He seemed like you put him in a wet paper bag.
He can't run fast, but he can talk fast.
You put a paper bag over that man's head, he's just going to suffocate. He can't rip out of it. He just don't have the physical capacity to do it, but you must do it. The Goyim must come and save him because he was promised it. What else we have on there? What about the old man's draft? Now, jump down. I think we can move on. But as we're seeing now, let's go to the Ukraine. Let's go to the Ukraine war that's happening. This is something that's happening now. Right now at this moment. There is warfare happening in Donetsk. And in Ukraine, Russia's invading it. Bombs happening right now. They are literally calling it the meat grinder. It is a horrible, horrible war. I mean, things that scary movies and nightmares are made of. If you don't want to sleep tonight, go watch conflict that is happening in Ukraine right now. There are people walking and a drone will get behind them. Like some of the dreams you had when you was a child and the boogeyman get behind you. And these people are running for dear life. You can't hear it, but you can tell their mouth is moving. They're screaming. Why? Because the drone is about to blow up everything. Chasing them through the woods, knowing that seconds from now I could lose my life. And they do. Trump even said millions of people are dying right now. Millions of people are dying in Ukraine. It's not making the news. But the Oscars made the news. The Grammys made the news. People are dying right now. Lives are being dispatched as we speak. Let's talk about it. What's happening in Ukraine? Let's read that article that we have.
Ukraine has recently overhauled its mobilization laws to address critical manpower shortages. Introducing
what did we talk about? They have changed some of their laws, right? You remember how they started with 18 to 36 and they began to move and mobilize and extend it? They've already reached that point quickly. But go ahead.
Let's see where we're at. Introducing measures that many consider harsh due to stricter enforcement and fewer exemptions. These rules
Start over again.
Ukraine has recently overhauled its mobilization laws to address critical manpower shortages, introducing measures that many consider harsh due to stricter enforcement and fewer exemptions. These rules, primarily enacted in April and May 2024, aim to streamline the drafting process and penalize those who evade service.
I can't tell where you are, but I'm going to read this part. The Ukrainian draft mobilize is implemented through a mandatory technologically driven. This is where America came up and said, we have to advance ours just like the Ukrainians have. An often forceful process for men from the age of 25 to 60. Through the technology, they're going through it. They're getting it. They're getting these people. And it says often through forceful process. And so if you can go and check throughout any platform, but particularly YouTube, the Ukrainian draft, there are people like Bloods and Crips, but these are military officials rolling down the street.
I got a video, actually.
Got one?
Yeah.
Rolling down. But they ain't smoking on nothing, drinking on no gin. They're looking for any available man. Any man. They've got men out there that are walking with a cane. They come on him and swarm him like killer bees and literally kidnap him. They put a bag on him, throw him in a van, a white van at that, and then drive him up to the nearest base. What you got?
You got this video. They
when you react,
you see them.
Oh,
Yeah, this is Ukraine. They forcing him to join.
He was hiding in his mama house.
Yep. And they say, if you read it, the description, it says they,
You can mute it. Mute that.
Yep. That's it. But
Okay.
they essentially gut punched him and forced him to come with them, drafting him to go on the front lines.
Yes. We got it right here. Forced mobilization tactics. Reports show recruiters patrolling public areas and street and having checks public transportation and venues to detain individuals and, in some cases, use force or transport them directly to recruitment offices. And that's AI giving it politely. They're going out, breaking down doors. There are mothers hiding their children in basements because they don't want to get rid of their children. And on top of that, I heard in the beginning of the war, there was a major exodus. All the people that had money were all their children were flying out. And it got so horrible that there were certain countries that accepted them. And the Ukrainian government, via Vladimir Zelensky, put out requests that they must return those people back home. And these people were going undercover. They're hiding. They're doing everything they can, but they're going out, sending men out of the country, trying to kidnap them and bring them back. Because there's a great shortage of men in that war, and they're going to do things just like we looked at, gut punch them.
We got another video, too.
Got another one?
Yeah.
All right.
Start that from the beginning.
Oh, yeah, I saw that one. Yep.
Oh, yeah. He's holding on to the pole. He does not want to go.
I'm not going. I got daughters and children.
So these are some of the things they're doing in Ukraine. This is not, 1942. This is...
And who told them to do this? The European Union, America, the UK.
Yeah, we can kill that right there.
Yeah, it may seem foreign, but that's happening today, right now. People are being kidnapped and forced to go to the front line. It's amazing what's happening because the draft is instituted. Again, there are some that may have the funds to sneak away, but your life will forever be changed. If you sneak away and you go to Moldova or you go to Poland or you go anywhere, after that war is over, and if Ukraine won, which, we can talk about that at another day, you can never return home. You'll be, a deserter. But if Russia take over, even then they may look at you a little funny. But again, there are consequences to everything. But you got to ask, will it be better for me to be a deserter and alive or a patriot and dead? Yeah, that's a decision that, you are to make. So they had these recruitments in Ukraine. Again, I said it's from 18 to 60, and this is the old one. I think they moved it up. It's possibly 70. I saw a news article. I couldn't find it before we went live, that they had this old man brigade, and it was guys that I believe, I doubt they was in World War II, but they were old. All right, these guys were hobbling around, and they used it as a piece of propaganda. A piece of propaganda that they was pushing over there. You're never too old to fight for the honor of your country. And they got these guys doing that Joe Biden fast step, that little, and they were like moving out there and dropping down on the ground, and they were 70 plus. And so they have already crept up with the age. There is no limit. If you have a heartbeat and blood is pulsing through your vein, they're coming to that old folks home and getting you. And as I said before, something new that have never been done before. I don't think it's just going to be a grab for the men. Remember when they came in with that new draft law, we started with that, they had women involved as well. But somehow, some way, there was somebody said, nah, not now. Not now. But trust me, if it get hard enough, you judge them by their fruit. They're going to implement women inside there as well.
Yeah. And we already see how during World War II, they changed things on a whim. This wasn't like this long legislative process to change things. And so if they can change the goalposts, then they can do the same thing with women. Just say, look, we're going to draft men 18 to 25. All right, we need more for Iran. We're going to draft men from 18 to 35. All right, we got to move it up to 45 to 65. We need women, too. We need to draft some women, too. And so it can easily shift. And like we said before, Iran is not an easy, light target. This is serious. The foreign minister of Iran, they were interviewing him and said, what do you think about American invasion of Iran? He said, oh, yeah, we're waiting on them.
Yeah.
He said, we're waiting on them. We want them to come. And so these people are ready. These people are there ready to go to war. And the environment over there, the landscape, the population themselves, this would be a horrible, hard-fought war that essentially would require more forces than what America has on hand. And so a draft is highly likely if Americans are put boots on the ground.
That's correct. That's correct. And you already see right now that the impetus will be upon America. You have Donald Trump already asking the EU, France, and Canada to help them protect and patrol the Straits of Hormuz. And they was like, nah, buddy. No. You handle that. Yeah. And so even if a world conflict come off, they're going to be like, you spearhead that, meaning more the truth. The Israelis are already saying it. We don't want to put boots on the ground. You put boots on the ground. And so you have to think about that. It would be, again, the impetus, the drive, the force would be on America's part to go up and show the people how it's done. Show them that we can win this war. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Trump said we don't need their help anyway. He said we can do it. He's talking about how he got bases over there and he's protecting them and, he don't need them anyway. And so, again, you have this hardliner, this hawk, this guy who is focused on a legacy for himself and for the Israelis, and he's literally having these false spiritualists in his ear. We talked about that in the last previous podcast, how they're talking about this is an end time. You're forcing the rapture in Jesus, and all of this is coming. And you got Paula White talking about speaking in tongues in that man's ear. I mean, craziness is happening right now. And again, we could be drug into it. So as we begin to close this podcast, come on, put in some of your comments. Let us know, are you ready to be drafted? And if a draft come out tomorrow, if it comes out so-called Monday morning, the second day, what are you prepared to do? You ready to go give your children over? You ready? You ready to go give yourself over? We're going to move down, if you will. You see the registration mandate that's highlighted? Dealing with Ukraine?
Yeah.
Let's go there.
What, mandatory data updates?
All men age 18 to 60?
All men aged 18 to 60 were required to update their personal information in the military register within 60 days of the law taking effect by July 16, 2024.
Right. So this is 2 years ago. 18 to what? 60 what?
18 to 60.
18 to 60. 2 years ago. And so, again, don't think you're getting out of this thing.
It's going to be done via Reserve plus mobile app. You got to draft it on the mobile app.
They got that tracking on there, too. So you know what's up. They know where you at. They know where you are. And so serious things are happening these days. So once again, in this podcast, we seek to talk about a plethora of things, a plethora of events, from politics to geopolitics to what's shaking, what's moving in your local neighborhood. And so this could be, again, something that's directly facing you. We told you, we put it out there before they was warring with Iran, that stock up on gasoline. The price is going to increase if they began to bomb Iran. And what happened? It happened. And diesel prices is out the roof. Gasoline prices have increased as well. It's different in different places. But all of it indicate, and that's even being manipulated. They open these reserve stocks and whatnot to try to mitigate the price. But when diesel prices go up, anybody that's in logistics understand that it takes vehicles, diesel-powered vehicles, to move and transport those things. The prices go up to transport, that must trickle all the way down to you. Things are increasing. Yeah. And that right there is putting a pinch and a hurt on everybody's pocket. But there's no relief for you, but you are charged to relieve these politicians when you're called up.
Yep. And, we can't tell you to do anything illegal on this podcast, but prepare yourself. What would you do if recruiters for the U.S. military are at your door saying you are drafted? What are you going to do? Are you ready? Do you want to be a part of that? Or maybe you have bone spurs, maybe you're addicted to TikTok and you can't can't go out there. Whatever it may be, what are you going to do if you are called up for service in Iran?
And in Ukraine, there's a part that we didn't read, but I'll just quickly go over it. Enforcement and penalties for people who are dodging the draft. Documented check. Men must carry their military registration and documents at all time and present them to recruitment officers or police upon request. There are old black and white movies that that some may have seen about, World War I, sometime in World War II, especially in Germany, where people are like, show me your papers. And this is what they're doing in Ukraine. You cannot walk the street without the proper papers. All people, not just immigrants, all American citizens will be illegal if you haven't signed up. They talk about prison time, minimum 3 to 5 years, they say, minimum 3 to 5 years, all type of astronomical fines, restrictions, You know, they have a plethora of things that they have putting in place to ensure that these people join. So as we spoke about before, there is this little known thing called a conscientious objector. If you want to be legal eagle and you want to face it straight on, simply talk about how you object to this war. You know, and I cannot with a good conscience fight a war that's based upon these particular principles, mostly that the Israelis are pushing this. Secondly, you have these evangelicals talking about we are invoking the return of the Messiah and Jesus Christ. The rapture is going to come, and you are being part and parcel of this big military industrial complex that is making billions. They stand to make trillions of dollars if this is a major conflict, especially if all nations get involved. And then you're talking about things like how they dropped that bomb upon the little girls' school. Yeah. You're going to be a part of that. Join the party. Be a part of the immoral war and the lies and the fog of war, they call it. You will be a part of that matrix system that is happening. Or conscientiously, you can do legally some things to say that, you know, you don't want to be a part of this or your child. But I can tell you, if things really, really get tough, you know, they're coming. They're tough in Ukraine. There's nobody sitting it out. All right. So prepare for the future. Get your mind right. Get your soul right. Get your spirit right. Make sure that the saints have atoned and that their mind is and their conscience is clear and clean and that they're ready for whatever the Heavenly Father guide them into.
Right. And before we close out, definitely got to thank our sponsor, Infinite Waters. They allow us to do this podcast. So you definitely want to get some. Go to their Amazon page. This is, you know, an essential product. It allows you to be hydrated. It has all the electrolytes that you need to actually allow your cells to be hydrated. So if you are working out, preparing for war, you getting ready to sign up for military service, you still going to need some Infinite Waters because you're going to need to, that hydration. Or whether you're partying and celebrating the fact that you did not get picked. And you celebrate a little too hard.
Or if you're dodging and you're in the basement, it get hot down there. You need to hydrate, you know? Yep. Or if you're running for the Canadian border, I mean, you got to hydrate.
Yep. And if you get to Canada and you're celebrating, you're drinking some nice Canadian brews, and you get a little too much, hydrate yourself. That helps prevent any sort of adverse effects.
And then while you're over there, if they draft you, then, you know, just salute. You know, it was your turn.
Yep.
So we salute you all, and may peace and thanksgiving reverberate in the mind of all the saints.
All right.